News has emerged this week of an industry that's really going to have to do some serious strategic workforce planning. Reports from Oliver Wyman's transportation team warn of a significant shortage of pilots in the future, despite most of the chatter about aviation at the moment being about the industry has been decimated by the COVID-19 pandemic. But if we take a more strategic view, this current situation is expected to be temporary, and that in the next 3 to 4 years, when levels of airline travels have increased past 2019 levels, airlines will face major pilot shortages. If not acted upon, this could significantly impact an airline's business and its ability to grow. Too few pilots could translate into fewer routes and less flights running on those routes. It could also mean higher fares to make up for the drop in revenue and, of course, higher pilot salaries as airlines compete to recruit and retain these key staff. In fact, modelling predicts a worldwide shortfall of at least 34,000 commercial pilots, almost 10% of the total workforce. Based on a modest recovery scenario, that gap may well begin to be felt as early as next year. If a more rapid recovery were to emerge, then the shortfall could reach up to 50,000 pilots. The reason for this rests on understanding that the demand for pilots isn't determined by passenger volume. It's linked to the flight hours and the number of planes flying, and airlines are already bringing aircraft back into service faster than expected to stimulate much needed demand in the sector. Whilst this is a global problem, there are of course regional differences. In North America, many experienced pilots took early retirement when the pandemic hit and are unlikely to come back. Here, the airlines are a victim of their aging workforce and mandatory retirement at 65. Younger pilots, who have the least experience and will be among the last to be called back, may choose to switch to a new profession. Historically, the military has provided a good pool of talent. In the 1980s, 2/3 of commercial pilots were ex-military. Today, that's only 1/3. And the military faces their own issues of recruitment despite the increasing numbers of unmanned aircraft. In all, it's estimated the gap may reach over 12,000 pilots by 2023, and that's around 15% of the total supply. Similarly, the Middle East also faces the problem of an aging workforce. With 20% of pilots older than 55 years, the prediction is that there will be a need of about 58,000 pilots, 59,000 technicians and 106,000 crew members by 2039, according to Boeing Commercial Market Outlook for the region. However, in the Asia-Pacific region, shortages are a result of rising demand for air travel, driven by a growing middle class. The high rate of air travel demand in this area is likely to result in a 22,000 pilot gap by 2029, and one option is that Asia may get bailed out by emigrations of unemployed or furloughed pilots from other slower growth regions such as Europe and Latin America. In turn, this could create supply challenges in those regions where currently there is a more stable picture of pilot availability. This all adds up to why strategic workforce planning is so important in the aviation sector. Whilst airlines are understandably focused on addressing the immediate effects of the current pandemic, preparing for the impending pilot shortage will be essential in rebuilding and growing operations in the coming years. Some workforce interventions that could be considered include rethinking crew operations to make them more efficient so that fewer pilots will be needed, increasing productivity while driving down cost in the process, naturally, to continue investing in training programs and pilot recruitment. And also for airlines to increase engagement with pilots. They should recognize the likelihood of increased competition for these staff, particularly for furloughed pilots, and actively engage with them to improve retention. Airlines can't create new pilots overnight, but they can make sure they lose as few as possible, and they can plan their workforce so that they are the relative winner, not loser, in ensuring they have the best staff to succeed.